In 2025, yet another awesome new zombie movie has hit the screens. The zombies in this film aren't just as fast as Usain Bolt, catching up to airplanes in a flash, they've even evolved in intelligence. They can use their sense of touch to track prey from a great distance, and even know how to strategize to break through the sturdy fortresses built by humans. Enough talk, let's dive right into the movie. A young boy is watching cartoons at home when suddenly the TV loses signal. An emergency alert suddenly interrupts the TV screen, announcing that an unknown epidemic is breaking out all over the world. Those infected all turn into bloodthirsty maniacs. This disease is extremely contagious, causing many cities to be ravaged by the outbreak. A noise comes from downstairs. It was just a prank by his sister. Their father calls home. On duty, he tells his wife to take the kids to stay with relatives in the suburbs for safety as the zombie outbreak has hit the city. Seeing her father always carries the lucky bracelet she made for him, little Abigail beams with a bright smile. By now, their mother finished packing. Hearing screams of terror from outside, she doesn't waste time and hurriedly grabs her two children to rush out. Getting in the car, she was suddenly knocked down by an infected person. Quick-witted, Abigail crawled under the car and saw her little brother being attacked. She was so terrified her body trembled. After a long while, she dared to crawl out. Abigail had no idea her mother lost consciousness. A zombie lunged at her. Critical moment, gunfire out. This uncle appeared like a savior and rescued Abigail. Afterwards, he even reminded Abigail to cover her ears. Only then did he shoot and put an end to her little brother, who was about to turn into a zombie. Now, 10 years have passed. After the zombie outbreak, human civilization has collapsed. The once bustling city is now nothing but ruins. Little Abigail has grown up. Under the guidance of Uncle Cassius, the man who saved her back then, she has become a female warrior living in the forest. Because she has spent all these years living in the forest, Abigail deeply longs to live with other people. Her greatest wish is to find a base where survivors are gathered, but for Cassius, the ideal place to live is a deserted island, far away from the mainland and from people. Suddenly, Cassius is awakened by an alarm bell outside. He carefully steps out of the tent to check. A zombie suddenly lunges out from the darkness. Cassius fires several shots in quick succession, killing it. Both feel worried after witnessing this. Because zombies live in packs, more are nearby. Before dawn, they pack and leave. Suddenly, their horses neigh. Cassius realizes danger approaches. The two look around, and from a distance, they see a jeep being surrounded by zombies. Originally, Cassius didn't want to get involved, but Abigail decisively opens fire. With no other choice, he has to take out the remaining zombies. The two ride their horses over to the jeep. Cassius sets his sights on the dead man's shoes. Just after changing into the shoes, he hears a voice calling out over the walkie-talkie. Turns out, the person still has companions. Cassius intends to leave immediately, but unexpectedly, just then, several off-road vehicles come charging in. A large group of armed survivors surround the two of them. Someone notices the shoes Cassius just put on and assumes the two are ruthless looters. While the two sides are at a standoff, a pregnant woman steps down and pleads with her group to spare Abigail's. At that moment, the horse sounds a warning. Then, roaring comes from the nearby forest. A massive horde of zombies surges like a tidal wave. It was already too late for everyone to run, so they could only draw their weapons and stand their ground to fight back. A female zombie, who seemed to still retain some intelligence, stood still and watched her companions fight bravely. The survivors had no cover, so their numbers quickly dwindled. Abigail carefully helped the pregnant woman into the jeep. Cassius fought while retrieving, then killed the intelligent zombie. Next, he slammed the gas and fled the zombie horde. A black-faced zombie, seeing the female zombie shot, howled in pain as if it lost its wife, its rage erupting. Cassius drove the pregnant woman and her husband away from the zombies. They learned the group planned to join a survivor camp called Broke Town. Hearing this, Abigail became excited. Isn't this the place she had always wanted to go? After figuring out the direction, Cassius planned to drive there, but halfway there, the car broke down. The husband of the pregnant woman got out and introduced himself as David, a machinery repair specialist. But due to a lack of parts, it was certain that the car couldn't be fixed anymore. With no other choice, Cassius's group could only continue on foot, making their way along the road ahead. Soon, they arrived at the city where Abigail lived. The tall buildings here were still standing, but they no longer had the vitality they once did. Cassius found a spacious building, planning for everyone to rest there for the night. After making sure there was no danger nearby, they started a fire and sat down to rest. Abigail was extremely curious about the camp called Booktown. There, the pregnant woman Megan had used a radio device to contact the other side. The name fit the town's appearance. It was made up of boats joined together, not connected to the mainland, so it was extremely safe. Moreover, the water and food supplies were abundant. It could be considered a sanctuary that all survivors longed to reach. Hearing that, Abigail's eyes lit up, but Cassius showed no interest in this place. Instead of wasting time chatting, he'd rather go outside to set up more warning devices and explosive traps. After finishing, Cassius returned to inform everyone about the plan going forward. He would escort Megan and her husband a bit further. After that, the two groups parted ways as their destination was the port gate in the opposite direction. Abigail, embarrassed, ran outside to reason with Cassius, asking why he wouldn't go with them to Booktown. Cassius was smart. The more people, the more dangerous. But Abigail didn't understand how treacherous people could be. After arguing with Cassius, she ran upstairs alone to keep watch. But neither of them knew that the black-faced zombie from earlier had tracked the scent to the car they'd abandoned in the middle of the road. It seems the leader of this zombie group was determined to have a showdown with Cassius. Early next morning, as Abigail looked through her childhood photos, she heard rustling from bushes downstairs. A zombie broke in. On the way, she ran into a zombie. Luckily, she reacted quickly and shook off that zombie in time. However, Abigail also lost her balance. Right at that moment, Cassius appeared once again and saved her from danger. Not long after, the leader of the zombie horde brought his underlings here. Unfortunately for them, they fell into the trap Cassius had set up beforehand. Hearing the explosion, Cassius felt a bit uneasy. He knew that he had become their target. Abigail suddenly remembered a civilian airport nearby where her father used to take her. There might still be planes there, saving everyone from walking daily. Cassius thought finding a plane was slim, but he couldn't resist Abigail's persistence, so he had no choice but to agree to check it out. After walking a while, the civilian airport Abigail mentioned appeared, but everyone was immediately disappointed because the place was empty, not a single plane in sight. But Abigail hadn't given up. She remembered her father had bought a spot for a private plane, which had now become an overgrown, abandoned lot that looked rather mysterious. After using the old method to open the door, her father's plane was there. Abigail was pleased. At last, she could finally show off in front of Cassius. These planes, even if they hadn't been used, David said they still needed to be checked thoroughly. Meanwhile, Cassius and Abigail were in charge of keeping watch from above. They barely sat down when zombies rushed toward them. Cassius hurried to remind Megan and her husband they had to get on the plane in 3 minutes. They no longer cared if David had finished repairing the plane. Seeing the zombies getting closer, Abigail tried to stay calm, relying on her hazy memories. She managed to start the plane. But by then, many zombies caught up. Their running speed matched professional sprinters, as if to cut off the plane. Cassius fired, shooting the zombie that climbed up. Abigail finally understood the flight procedure clearly. She gently lifted the plane into the sky. The black-faced zombie looked up, eyes filled with complex emotions. Everyone smiled. Soon they reached the boat town. But a second later, the plane's tail smoked, nosedived to the ground. Luckily, they were fortunate enough. The plane fell from a height but was cushioned by some trees, so all 4 of them only suffered minor injuries. With the plane no longer usable, they had no choice but to continue on foot. After walking for a while, they arrived at an abandoned train station. Once she confirmed there were no zombies around, Cassius decided they would rest there for the night. The port gate and the boat town were located at opposite ends of the road. The 4 could still travel together for a bit. After putting his wife to sleep, David went to the train car, pulled down his pants, and revealed a terrifying wound. He had been bitten by a zombie. David knew he would turn into a zombie, so he intended to shoot himself, but thinking of his pregnant wife, he gave up the idea. Early next morning, Cassius noticed something off with David. Taking advantage of moment no one paying attention, Cassius pulled David's pants and discovered the zombie bite. But since Abigail, walking ahead, kept urging them on, he had no choice but to temporarily let it go and not kill David. Night fell, and the group stumbled upon a farmhouse. Cassius quietly approached with his gun, but suddenly a loudspeaker blared a warning. After confirming people were inside, Abigail walked to the door and said they meant no harm. Upon learning a pregnant woman in their group, the homeowner immediately let down his guard. After collecting their weapons, he invited everyone inside. To their surprise, the homeowner had installed both a solar power system and a rainwater filtration machine. At last, Abigail was able to take a hot shower and enjoy a delicious meal. Cassius charged his laptop, which contained photos of him and his wife, including one where his wife was pregnant. Seeing the pictures, Cassius found Megan and told her he'd changed his mind. He'd escort them to the boat town, then take Abigail to the port gate. The host brought wine and water. They hadn't relaxed like this in a long time. But after chatting for a while, they started to feel that something was off. Unexpectedly, the host believed that zombies were the next stage of human evolution, the top predators, and that they should be ruling the world. Just like in the past, humans greedily killed other animals. Everyone was so shocked by the host's words that their eyes widened and their jaws dropped. Only David felt increasingly uncomfortable. When he rushed to the bathroom to check, he realized the infection had spread all over his body. David returned to the living room and saw that the three, Cassius and the others, had already passed out. Then, the host pressed a button on the device in his hand. David felt his whole body go limp, completely drained of strength. When he came to, David found he and his teammates were hanging. The host had sedated them, and his true identity was a biologist. After years of research, he invented a machine that controlled zombie behavior via infrasound waves. Cassius's group walked into his trap, becoming rare test subjects. After his explanation, the host opened the cage behind him, revealing his wife, now a zombie. He flipped the switch. The zombie obeyed, charging at Cassius. David used the zombie virus power within him to break free from the handcuffs. He ignored the machine's control and rushed to save Cassius's group. The host fled and disappeared. Cassius didn't want to stay here. He found a car outside and took everyone into the forest. But how could the host just let them go? He controlled the zombie to chase the car. Cassius drove fast, but a fallen tree blocked their way. The group had to abandon the car and run. David couldn't hold out, so he stayed to protect everyone as they escaped. After a brief exchange with his wife, he rushed into the zombie horde. He could only slow them down briefly. Cassius carried Megan, fighting and running. As zombies closed in, they spotted a small human outpost. Abigail guessed this must be the boat town they sought. Hearing the commotion, the guard immediately opened fire, killing zombies trespassed. The black-faced zombie leader stopped his 8 underlings' give chase. Because there was water ahead, they couldn't get across. Not long after, Cassius's group took a boat to the center of the camp. Megan's water broke, needing immediate medical attention. Luckily, a doctor and infirmary were present. Early next morning, they saw the camp's layout and the large boat connected, revealing a base far from the mainland. And finally, Cassius met the person in charge of the camp. He welcomed them to settle, but they had to follow strict rules. Cassius didn't hesitate and left. He felt an uninhabited island offered more freedom. But Abigail had made up her mind to stay. She really longed to live with friends her own age. After that, the two of them had a heated argument. At that moment, the doctor rushed over to announce that Megan had given birth to a baby girl, but due to severe blood loss, she might not have much time left. Cassius, deeply saddened, ran into the hospital room. At this point, Megan was very weak. She wanted to entrust her newborn daughter to Cassius, hoping the little girl could grow up like Abigail. Cassius thought of his late wife and finally agreed to Megan's request. He knew that another responsibility had just been placed on his shoulders. Meanwhile, Abigail, guided by the handsome young man, finally got to experience a joy she had never known before. She never expected that the whole group could drink together and dance freely to wonderful music. So she decided to stay longer. After a great time, Abigail saw the young man sneaking to the lower deck. Curious, she followed him and discovered ropes and explosives with a remote detonator visible. At that moment, the young man rushed over to explain they had set up explosives all over the lower deck. If one day this place was attacked, the villagers would escape through a tunnel and blow up the entire area. But neither of them expected that the day they would be attacked would come so soon. The owner of the house hated Cassius's group, so he used a control device to collaborate with the leader of the zombie horde. With the support of human intelligence, the natural water barrier no longer worked. A large number of zombies swam or used boats to attack the boat town. Because the attack was so sudden, the town's guards suffered heavy losses. The townspeople, having lost their advantage in terrain, ultimately could do nothing but become prey for the zombies. Worried about Abigail's safety, Cassius went against the flow of people to look for her, shooting zombies as he searched, and finally found Abigail fighting on the ship's deck. Perhaps due to a moment of agitation, he was pushed down to the bottom of the boat by a zombie. The landlord smugly appeared. He had finally waited for his chance to take revenge. But Cassius didn't just sit and wait for death. He grabbed his opponent's hand and slammed it down. The fragile machinery broke, losing the zombies. The landlord was torn apart. Fortunately, the camp had prepared an escape route. Quite a few survivors used the tunnel to escape to the other side of the river. As they were about to blow up the deck, the handsome guy told them to wait because Abigail was still on the boat. While fleeing, Cassius stalked rowing and knocked out the zombie horde leader. Abigail noticed the opponent's bracelet. Isn't this the bracelet she made for her father? But Abigail didn't have time to think. Cassius pulled her into the tunnel. The guy pressed the remote. Boat crew was instantly engulfed in flames. But everyone's battle was not over. The leader, with his neck covered, approached. He was bitten by a zombie but hadn't turned yet and was knocked down by the zombie leader. Unexpectedly, it survived the explosion. Cassius rushed to fight it. Abigail picked up the fallen gun, realizing the zombie leader was her father. But Cassius, who raised her, was also in danger. In the end, Abigail made the decision to shoot the leader of the zombie horde. After all, he was no longer her father now. This also proved that the female zombie Cassius killed earlier was actually Abigail's mother. You could say that all the plot twists in the movie fit together perfectly. Finally, Cassius led the remaining survivors as they looked toward the distant deserted island. They decided to rebuild a new home for humanity there. And that's where the movie ends. That was the entire plot of the movie Silent Zone. What do you think of this movie? If you liked it, comment 111. If you thought it was just okay, comment 222. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you next time.